morning and welcome to the breakfast show on Faith FM with Skafy and Dan. This is the best place to start your day with positive and uplifting thoughts. You're listening across Australia on 87.6, 87.8 or 88 depending on where you are. You can also download us on your app store of choice. Faith FM Australia is the name of our app. You can listen to us without interruptions with the power of the internet. And I am in the studio today with my mate, Daniel Livingston. Good morning to you, Dan.
Good morning.
And
great
we
to
have
be here.
producer Sandy today with us. Good morning to you, Sandy.
Good morning.
It's great to have you here, both of you. Today, if you're listening live, is Friday, the 27th of February. And as we do, let's start this show with sharing some words of gratitude here. I'm going to go first, and I'm grateful for tweaking your life.
Tweaking your life.
Tweaking your life. You know, like adjusting to your like small things in life so that they can be a little bit better. So yesterday I was having a conversation with my wife, and she was, talking how difficult sometimes mornings are before taking the kids to school and all of the moving parts that are there, and the kids have to carry their backpack and then their homeschool bag and then their homework bag and then their music bag and then their musical instruments and all these kinds of things, and it adds up, and then
it's a lot.
It's a lot. Then you have to open up the garage and put it in the car and go down the stairs, and my stairways in my house, I get a broken step as well, so it's actually pretty dangerous. So look, it's great that I was asking God, okay, what can I do here? And then we do some smaller thing. I said to her, look, you know what? I can bring the kids' stuff to the garage before I leave to the show in the morning. So one less thing to worry about. Just like one little thing. Yep. And I called a friend of mine who's a bit of a carpenter himself and says, hey, look, I have this. Before I call in a tradie to help me out, is that any easy way for me to fix my broken step? And he said, yeah, you can add a bracket or sorts. So I'm going to be just, installing a little bracket.
Handyman stuff.
Yeah, just like something very easy. I'm not a handy person, but like a bracket, that's easy. I can install that. Just tweaking little things so that you can make your life better. Just like one little thing at a time. Just designing your lifestyle around something that you can actually have more time for the things that matter the most.
Yeah. Nice.
Good. Yeah. All right. What about you, Dan? What are you grateful for today?
I'm grateful for something pretty simple too. I woke up this morning at probably 3:30 or something like that with a dead arm. I was actually dreaming about having some issue with my arm. I was carrying something and my arm just wasn't working properly. And sure enough, I woke up and, when you wake up and you got a dead arm, it was completely cold and I have this floppy thing next to me and I can't move it.
It's horrible when that happens. I hate it.
So weird.
Look, I'm not thankful for that weird, horrible feeling, but I'm thankful for the human body and its ability to just,
snap
bounce back.
Which is we're going to be talking about something like that in my segment today, because I'm going to be talking about a Christian pastor / rapper that has been battling with chronic fatigue since for 20 years, since his college years, and then he just released an album called For Your Glory, talking about worshiping God while life is really hard. So we're going to be talking a little bit more about that. And producer Sandy, what about you? Do you have any gratitude to share?
I am thankful for my dad. He lives in West Australia. I had a chat with him on the phone last night, and he's just a kind and gentle person, and he's just been a really good example of God in my life. So,
that's wonderful. Yeah. How cool! Look, how cool that you get to talk to your dad, as an adult as well. I didn't have that privilege myself. Unfortunately, my father died at fairly young age, but I'm definitely looking forward to be there for my kids and see when they have their own kids, and unless we go to heaven first, who knows?
You're listening to the Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.
In today's study, Dan, we are going to be looking at the origin, the birth, the genesis of taxes. If you ever wondered when you're paying your taxes where this idea even comes from, probably this is one of the earliest examples of that in recorded human history. But what is very, very interesting about that is when I look, it's not why taxes came about or what were the things that Joseph was requesting from the people during the times of famine, but what really got my attention is what Joseph did not require from people.
Interesting.
Very interesting. Okay. So this is going to be our Bible study today. But before we get into that, I would love to ask producer Sandy to share with us the first quiz question of the day. Please, Sandy.
Certainly. So, staying in the Old Testament, which son of David was also less famously called Jedediah? So we know this person more commonly by another name. But
I know this one.
yes, which son of David was also less famously called Jedediah? We
Good
would
old
love to hear
Jeddy.
from our listeners this morning, 0491 064 669. Yes, Skafy's on it. Which son of David was also less famously called Jedediah? 0491 064 669. Yes, Dave. Daniel has it as well.
Good on you,
Almost
Dan.
called me
Answers. Yes.
At least you didn't almost say
I
the
didn't
answer.
spill
Is your
it, that's
second
right.
name Daniel David?
Well, hey, look, I do get David a lot, being a Livingston.
Yes.
Okay, true.
My middle name is not David, though.
So tell who was David Livingston because this name is not unfamiliar to a lot of people. What was he? Who
Okay,
was
so I have to clarify. I have to be pedantic. His name has an E on the end of it. My name does not have an N.
Livingstone.
Yeah, on the end
Okay.
of Livingston. Livingstone, yeah. Anyway, but I like Livingstone. Like, it's in one of Peter's epistles, how he describes this as Livingstone. So, it's a good name. But David Livingstone was a missionary and explorer in Africa. And he's famous for many things, but a medical doctor as well. And he's famous for identifying and naming the Victoria Falls in Zimbabwe, the border
really?
of Zimbabwe.
Wow, very cool. All right, so stories of a famous missionary, David Livingstone, not to be confounded with Daniel Livingstone, which is another missionary, but this
Yes,
one is alive
that's
today.
right, that's right.
And he's
So-
here.
Just a reminder of that quiz question. Which son of David was also less famously called Jedediah? 2 Samuel 12, 24 and 25. Send us your answers to 0491 064 669. We would love to hear from you.
Okay. Well, David sent us a message here saying what he's grateful for. He said, look, I'm grateful for Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp because when you write a message and you don't correct, you can actually fully erase it and then write again. With text messages, you can't do that. You know what? I'm also grateful for that. This editing tool or even the erase for everyone tool. Like, I remember a time where that was not a thing, and this definitely has helped me avoid a number of disasters a few times. Thank you very much, David, for sharing that with us. Okay, are you ready then? Let's open up the Bible then.
Yeah.
We are in the book of Genesis, and we are in chapter 47, verse 10. So what just happened is that Pharaoh was having this interview with Jacob, and Jacob was kind of crying, saying, look, yeah, my years of my life have been very short, only 130, nothing compared to my ancestors, and my life has been really hard and sorrowful and difficult. He was just complaining, basically, and just feeling sorry for himself a little. And let's read from verse 10.
So Jacob blessed Pharaoh and went out from before Pharaoh. I really like that verse. Jacob blessed Pharaoh.
Yeah,
This is weird.
Isn't it interesting?
It's like, some old, person with maybe, with a bit of seniority and respect amongst his family, going to the President of the United States and saying, President Trump, I bless you today. From the God of heaven, I'm giving you a blessing.
Yeah.
Like that, it really changes the hierarchy, doesn't it? Like it's God
does.
on top, Jacob next, Pharaoh at the receiving end of.
Yeah, you know what? I think you have a really good point there. The Bible says, look, it is the greater who blesses the lesser.
Yeah.
He's talking about the Bible makes some arguments in that regard. That being said, so there's a few things here. This Pharaoh was probably very young. He was probably younger than Joseph because he considered Joseph to be like a father to him. And therefore, Jacob will be kind of like a grandfather. Number two, there's another element to blessed as well in the Bible, which blessing is not necessarily saying, I'm asking God to bless you, but blessed is also thanking
Yeah, right.
him.
Yeah.
So he kind of thanked Pharaoh, so he's also a way to bless. So when Jesus, for example, blessed the food, or blessed, basically what he's saying, he's thanking God for the food. So to bless God or to bless someone is also a way to thanking them. That being said, in whatever is the case, Pharaoh was humble enough to just accept it. from Jacob, which I think it's really amazing. So let's keep moving here in verse 11. But yeah, that's a good catch. Really interesting phrase
there's an interesting commentary provided by a woman by the name of Ellen White, where she writes in the book Patriarchs and Prophets, something along the lines of, I forget the exact quote, but something along the lines of, with an air of conscious superiority, Jacob blessed Pharaoh.
Okay. So she's definitely on the camp of, he recognized he had like this spiritual authority here and he's blessing. Fantastic. That's really cool.
I can find that quote. But anyway, let's keep reading
absolutely.
In verse 11, And Joseph situated his father and his brothers and gave them a possession in the land of Egypt, in the best of the land, in the land of Ramesses, as Pharaoh had commanded. Then Joseph provided his father, his brothers, and all his father's household with bread, according to the number in their families. Now there was no bread in all the land, for the famine was very severe, so that the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan languished because of the famine. And Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt, in the land of Canaan, for the grain which they brought. And Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. So when the money failed in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came to Joseph and said, "Give us bread, for why should we die in your presence? For the money has failed."
All right, let's just pause here. This is a wild, there's just the economy ran out of money. Every single bit of money. And back in the days, they couldn't just print money at leisure, as we do today. We just print money, just generate inflation. If they could, we would have seen a widespread hyperinflation. But in this case, people just look.
The money had actual value.
Yeah, money had actual, it was actual silver or actual gold. Everything, all the money in circulation in the entire region, both Egypt and Canaan. So we're talking about two very big distinct regions. They ran out. There's just no money whatsoever for anyone. All the money was in the central bank of Egypt. So people said, "Look, we ran out of money. We still need food. What do we do? Please do not let us die." So let's see what Joseph would respond to them.
Remind me which verse.
Yes. We are on verse 16 now.
16. Then Joseph said, "Give your livestock, and I will give you bread for your livestock if the money is gone."
Yeah. So he said, "Look, just give me all of your animals. They are assets at the time."
So the tax was for not just cash, but for animals.
So we're not talking about tax yet.
Okay, all right.
Basically, people are saying, "Look, we don't have any more money. How can we buy grain?" Joseph said, "Look, give me your goats, your cows, whatever you have, your chicken, whatever animals you have for livestock, give them to me, and I'm going to give you grain instead."
Cool. Okay. So I'll read that. Verse 17. So they brought their livestock to Joseph, and Joseph gave them bread in exchange for the horses, the flocks, the cattle of the herds, and for the donkeys. Thus he fed them with bread in exchange for all their livestock that year.
Okay. Yeah, okay. All right, so people get, here's my donkey, here's my horses, here's our livestock, here you go. And Joseph fed them.
When that year had ended, they came to him the next year and said to him, "We will not hide from my lord that our money is gone. My lord also has our herds of livestock. There is nothing left in the sight of my lord but our bodies and our lands. Why should we die before your eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be servants of Pharaoh. Give us seed that we may live and not die, and the land may not be desolate."
Oh, okay. So look how interesting. They said, "Look, the only thing that we have left now is our own bodies and our land. Just, we will serve you. We'll become your just makes us slaves. Give us some food, and you can take our lands." And this is I think this is something really interesting happening now. Verse 20.
Then Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh, for every man of the Egyptians sold his field because the famine was severe upon them. So the land became Pharaoh's. And as for the people, he moved them into the cities, from one end of the borders of Egypt to the other end. Only the land of the priests he did not buy, for the priests had rations allotted to them by Pharaoh. And they ate their rations which Pharaoh gave them. Therefore, they did not sell the lands.
Yeah, so, okay, let's pause here because some things are happening. So Joseph bought all of the land, which makes us believe that until this point in time, the government has no say in terms of your land usage. You didn't have to pay any taxes for your land. You just, because look, you own your land, right? Then you own your house, you live in a property, you have a bit of a land. So do I. But you have to pay like council rates. What happens if you don't pay your council rates, for example?
Yeah, good question. They charge interest.
Probably they charge interest. Eventually, this interest will build up to the point that say, hey, give us the land back. Give us the land back. So you have to pay taxes, to own land. This is basically an acknowledgement of saying, yes, the land is yours, but it's kind of not really. It's ours because look, the government doesn't charge you tax for anything that you actually own. Right? For example, your shirt. You're wearing like a nice gray shirt. Are you paying any ongoing yearly taxes to have a license?
I paid goods and services tax when I bought it.
Yeah, you paid it once, but not on an ongoing basis.
So rates, though, I'm being a little bit
be the devil's advocate. That's so good.
Devil's advocate here. Rates is to cover the services that council provides that we benefit from. So waste collection, roads, and other community infrastructure.
Yeah. Fair enough. But then what happens if you just stop paying those rates? I mean, you can say that maybe the government will stop collecting my waste. Maybe they'll cut my electricity down and my water. But you can say, yeah, that's fine. Like I'm self-sustainable. I'm generating my own electricity. I have my own water, collecting from the rain.
Yeah, so they have the power to use debt collection and whatever means recourse which eventually would be taking your land.
Yeah, but I'm wondering, and again, I don't know the answer to that one. I'm wondering if you can truly say, yeah, no, my land is mine. If I decide not to pay anything, kind of become almost like a sovereign citizen sort of thing.
Yeah.
Not wanting to use that expression much because it gets some bad rap. But what would happen if you just said, I'm not paying any taxes anymore?
Yeah, good question.
Period.
We should try. No, we shouldn't.
Look, I'm not keen to try, by the way. But my point is, before that time in history, like people didn't have to pay anything. It was just yours, and it was yours. Like you do whatever you wanted with it. But not now. From this point onwards, the situation changed, and now all the land belonged to the Egyptian Federation. And for you to live in your land, you have to pay taxes, which we're going to be looking at the amount here. But what is very interesting to me is what Joseph did not do. Because what did the people say? Buy us and our land for food, and we and our land will be slaves to Pharaoh. Guess what Joseph did? He says, you know what? I'm not going to make you slaves. I'm not going to enslave my own people. Even though I have all the opportunity, I have the power to do so, I am not doing it because slavery is against God's plan for humanity.
Yeah, interesting.
So you see Joseph getting that picture. Even though slavery was a very accepted institution at the time, Joseph saying, far be it from me that I would take the circumstances just to make you slaves for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? He could have said, yeah, people were asking for it. And just say, look, it's not necessary. I'm not going to do this.
And we see that in the way that God set up the Israelite nation as well, that there wasn't going to be lifelong servitude and slavery.
No. Yeah. Yes, the institution of slavery in Israel is very, very different from the slavery that we often read in our textbooks about slavery in America or slavery in Europe, slavery in South America, like the African slavery and so on. Very different. Actually, slavery in the Bible times was actually very similar to just like a regular paid job. In Australia today, really. It's like you have all the rights, you can't be mistreated. If you get mistreated, you're welcome to go free. You even have like some kind of superannuation built-in method, which is after 7 years of working, your boss is supposed to give you all that you need so that you can start your own business and just not ever work to him again. And if you do want, slavery in the Bible, people look at it, it's like, in Israel, very different than slavery anywhere else in the world. This is often something that the critics of the Bible, they're very quick to point, yeah, but God authorized or he allowed slavery. Say, yes, he did. It was a human institution. He allowed the people to organize themselves as they saw fit. But there's so many boundaries that, you'd probably be better off in back then slavery than in some
Than
modern
working
day
for
jobs.
McDonald's or I'm not, that's not a criticism of McDonald's, but yeah.
Yes, compared to some modern day jobs.
Yeah.
But this is beside the point. I'm not going to be talking about the slavery here. But what is very interesting here is that the Israelites themselves, they would become the slaves, but when they had the opportunity to enslave the whole Egypt, they did not act on that.
Yeah.
And the pharaoh of the dynasty of this current pharaoh of Joseph, archaeologists understand, I think there's a lot of evidence to that. They are from the Hyksos people group. And the Hyksos people group, they are also Semitic group. They are not an African-based group or a Hamite group. They were Semitic, meaning they were far removed, but they're ethnically cousins to the Israelites. So they were cousins to the Hebrews, basically.
Yeah.
And they had the opportunity to enslave the whole Egypt. They didn't. And down the track, Egypt is not going to see that as an act of kindness, and what they're going to do instead. Yeah, you didn't enslave us, but we're going to enslave you instead.
You're listening to the Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.
And man, before we jump into our quiz question, I just wanted to say that we have a very special giveaway today. We're talking about Joseph's management of the Egyptian economy here, and how Egypt became really greater even in the times of Joseph after that big calamity of the famine. So actually, I think it's really important then for all of us to have at least a baseline of a good financial education. And there's probably not one of the better gifts that we can pass on to our children is good financial habits. Good, what I like to call financial hygiene. You know, saving, not spending more than you earn, and all these kinds of things, so that when they become adults, they won't be struggling just because they don't really know how money operates. So if this is something that God has been impressing your heart, that you want to do, something that you want to pass on to your children, to your grandchildren, or perhaps just for yourself, we have a great resource for you, which is free today. It's Penny Pinching Principles for Money-Wise Parents, with 31 daily tips to better your child's financial future. If you would like to get your hand into that book, just let us know here. You can text us to 0491 064 669 with the hashtag penny. Hashtag penny to 0491 and 064 669, and we will organize to send that book to you completely for free. Penny Pinching Principles for Money-Wise Parents. Producer Sandy, now
Yes.
let's move on into our Bible question. So you were asking who is also known as Jedediah.
That's correct.
A
And
son
who
of
was the-
David.
Yeah, who is the person?
son of David, who was also named Jedediah, is Solomon.
Yeah, so Jedediah was kind of like a nickname. I think it means like beloved by God or
Yeah.
something like that. Loved by
Yes.
God. It's like a bit of an endearing term as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, next one.
And the next question. In Acts chapter 15, a council convened in Jerusalem to consider which of these options. Was it whether Sabbath should be changed to Sunday, or whether Gentiles must become Jews before becoming Christian? In chapter 15 of Acts, a council convened in Jerusalem to consider which of these options. Was it whether Sabbath should be changed to Sunday, or whether Gentiles must become Jews before becoming Christian? 0491064669. And yes, we've got both correct answers here in the studio. In Acts chapter 15, a council convened in Jerusalem to consider which of these options. Was it whether Sabbath should be changed to Sunday, or whether Gentiles must become Jews before becoming Christian? So
All right.
Good
hopefully
question.
we'll hear
Yeah.
from our listeners. 0491064669. 669.
Text us in. Then, so Joseph had the opportunity to take advantage of the Egyptian people, yet he didn't.
Do you mind me just sharing the quote that I alluded to and slightly quoted for when Joseph brought his father Jacob to the King Pharaoh? It's just one sentence. The patriarch was a stranger in royal courts, but amid the sublime scenes of nature, he had communed with a mightier monarch. And now, in conscious superiority, he raised his hands and blessed Pharaoh.
Yeah, very good. Love it.
Yeah.
Great.
But anyway, back to where you're going.
Yes. So Joseph had the opportunity to take advantage of someone financially, actually for an entire nation.
Yeah.
and he didn't. Yeah, which tells what kind of man he was. Really.
It's interesting. That's also reflected in his people 400 years later when they left Egypt, and actually they overthrew. Well, God overthrew the Egyptian army and king at the Red Sea. They could have taken, like, normally when you defeat a country, you take over their land and territory and possessions. They could have taken over Egypt and made them all slaves, taken the ultimate revenge.
That's right, because they were on their knees. They didn't have an army.
Yeah.
All the Egyptians were afraid of God, of the God of the Jews, because
the
they
10
knew
plagues
that
had just annihilated all their livelihood, and then their army and king had all perished in the Red Sea.
That's a good point.
So yeah, God's way of life back then was certainly not based on domination and slavery and servitude.
Yeah, I love it. That's a great point. I haven't thought about that one. Okay, so Joseph then takes all the land of Egypt. Let's see what happens here. And then there's two interesting things here. As for the people, he removed them to the cities from one end of Egypt border to the other. Why do you think there's this mass migration thing happening here? So he basically took people... Yeah, urbanization, right?
Yeah.
They took all these people from their lands, and they're going into the cities.
Yeah. I wonder what those cities were like. Whether they were urban slums or palatial. I reckon in a time of destitution, of not a lot of wealth or food, these cities would not have been happy places to set up mansions and that sort of thing.
Let me see here. There's a Bible commentary here. This is what it says. This statement is an accurate translation of the Hebrew text as we know it today. It seems to mean that Joseph distributed or organized the population of the land according to the cities in which grain was stored, placing them either in the cities or in their immediate vicinity. However, the Septuagint and the Vulgate. So the Septuagint it's a Greek version of the Old Testament, very old. Predates even the ministry of Jesus. May reflect the original more accurately. So this is what it says in the Septuagint. So Joseph brought the people into bondage to him for servants. Since the Hebrew text presumably underlying these early translations would represent the exchange of but two very similar Hebrew letters, the equivalent of D and R, the addition of another letter, it's possible that the Septuagint are actually closer to the original texts. So their rendition certainly seems more appropriate to the context until the recovery of an ancient Hebrew text of this passage may decide the problem one way or the other. However, it's best to withhold judgment. You know what? This is very interesting. This is actually going against kind of what we were saying here. I mean, not going against, but it's saying, look, in the Hebrew manuscripts that we have, we can read, Joseph removed them to the cities from one end of Egypt. But when you look at the Septuagint, it says, and Joseph made them slaves. And apparently it's just like the change of two letters actually changes the whole meaning of that verse. That he made them servants into bondage. And the reality is we don't have the verdict yet. What do you think? Did he end up which version is right? The Hebrew version or the Septuagint? We don't know.
Yeah, and... it's probably the truth is probably a little bit of both. But I think an important thing is what you alluded to before, and that is that the way that the word slavery was used in those times is not much different to the way that, in today's world, we are slaves of the organization that we work for. We have a contract where we have obligations to a company to provide services, and they are obligated to provide for us. It's not much different. Point. It's just the language that we have today about slavery is all slavery is bad, and so whenever it's used, we say, that's evil. But it just describes the relationship of work and employment that we have today.
Look,
and it describes bad things as well. So I'm not saying all slavery in old times was all good.
No, but it's very different from what we expect we see today, or very different from the ways it was practiced outside of Israel back in the days.
Yeah, and there was a lot of evil as well.
I think I see a middle ground here. I think that a lot of people ended up, Joseph seeing that opportunity. Obviously, the Bible is not talking about that every single country was in the field was emptied, because we will see here that they would ask for seeds. Joseph would give them seeds. They would plant, and then Joseph would tax them 20% of their production. But I think that a lot of people said, "Look, can we just wait for work for you?" And where do governments need people working for them? In the cities, normally. So bring them to the cities. I think that Joseph ended up saying, "Okay, look, you work for me, and I'll pay you a ration." And this is aligned with what came next, because it looks like of all the people, the only people that didn't lose their lands were the priests. Because the priests, they worked for Pharaoh directly. They were public servants, and they have an allotment from Pharaoh already. So they had their salary in grain already guaranteed, meaning that they didn't need to pay taxes for their land, because their land was never bought to them. So I think that we can definitely see a harmony here between these two ideas. Not making them slaves as in slaves as we understand them, but at the same time, a lot of the people who are saying, "Look, just buy us," like as in, I'll go and I'll work for you. I'll be a public servant and receive my salary through that. I think that happened in mass. And actually this happens as well. Well, think about COVID. What happened during COVID time in Australia, for example? A lot of people who could not work, for example, they were placed under some kind of Centrelink support payment to a certain degree. I remember that during the COVID times, one of the things, yes, JobKeeper. Yeah. It's nothing glorious, but definitely something that was very welcome to people. I remember that superannuation was made available to people during COVID. Remember that one? It's kind of similar situation.
Yeah, okay.
So look, if you lost your job because of COVID and cannot work, you can use your superannuation. And I remember that the number of boob jobs that were made, like breast plastic surgeries, which is like skyrocketed.
Yeah, right.
Because a lot of people, having their priorities very clear in their minds, said, "Yeah, sure, we're going through like a massive calamity. I have my superannuation with me, which is my retirement plan. Well, I'm going to do that plastic surgery that I have always wanted to." No judgment here, but I remember that this being one of the things that was noticed at the time. So let's read verse 23 here then.
All right. Let me get back to it, sorry. Verse 23, "Then Joseph said to the people, 'Indeed, I have bought you and your lands this day for Pharaoh. Look, here is seed for you, and you shall sow the land. And it shall come to pass in the harvest that you shall give 1/5 to Pharaoh. 4/5 shall be your own, as seed for the field for your food, for those of your household, and as food for your little ones.'"
Yeah. Well, so this is where taxes came in. So
Yeah.
Joseph bought all the land. People are in a dire situation. He says, "Here, look, I'm going to give you some seed. You plant it. And after you finish planting, you give us 20%, and you stay with 80%. It was actually quite dignifying. Not a lot of countries in the world today have only a 20% tax bracket across the board.
And it's not a
Probably like
progressive or
half
regressive.
of what we have here in Australia.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So, it would be great, wouldn't it, if the government says, "You know what, from now on, all your income tax is going to be taxed like, 20 cents per the dollar. That's it. Get rid of GST. And this is the one flat rate, 20%, and off you go."
Yeah, yeah.
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, look, yeah. It would be. There's so many different perspectives when it comes to, what is the optimal tax regime. Like, you look at Scandinavian countries, they have higher taxes and they have, generally
higher services as well.
Yeah. So it's hard to say, it's.
I think that we wanted to have like the same level of services, if not better, with less taxes.
With less taxes.
That's
Exactly.
I don't think that anybody will disagree with that.
Yeah.
What people sometimes may not necessarily want is like, yeah, sure, but do I really want to pay less taxes but then have less government coverage, like a lesser safety net? I'm individual, and this is just my personal opinion here. It's not Faith FM's opinion. It's not the Bible opinion. I am of the opinion that, look, in an ideal world, we would have less taxes, less services indeed, but we would have more generous people.
Yes.
And more people looking after people with no interest. Like, and I place churches at a big portion of that.
Yes, no, I agree.
I think that it's good to have governments managing things, but when governments manage money that it's kind of not theirs, it's other people's money, there's always kinds of inefficiencies.
Yeah.
When you look at it, normally, when you look at something that the government is running versus something that a private person is running, usually the private person that have their own skin in the game, they tend to run it better.
Yeah.
That's just a general observation. However, there are spaces where you don't really want to outsource certain strategic things to people, to individuals. Like, for example, military.
Yeah, they're a natural monopoly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
military.
Natural monopolies like that one. Some people say, what about water? Because imagine if an individual is controlling water and they say, I'm just turning off the tap because I'm not liking it for whatever reason, for political reasons.
Yeah,
so,
and water has been privatized with, in a regulatory context that allows that to work. I'm not saying that it's necessarily a good thing to do, but it can work.
No, it can work, absolutely. So look, I'm of the very strong opinion, the relatively strong opinion, that whatever people can do with their own resources, it tends to be better than if you're doing with someone else's resources. Just like you as a parent will take better care of your children than any babysitter you can possibly hire for you, or even any teacher in any school. That's, because when something is ours, we have a different relationship to them.
Yeah.
So that's the story of, this is the story of taxes. According to the Bible, at least the first time taxes are mentioned in the Bible, like state taxes. So, and we have them ever since.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Thanks, Joseph.
Yeah. Oh, let's just move on to the next verse so we can wrap it up. So now Israel lived in the land of Egypt, in the land of Goshen, and they acquired property in it and were fruitful and became very numerous. So Joseph's family appeared to actually have surfed through that crisis as well, really well. So they managed to acquire property. And this is what happens when you do have resources. When people have resources and then they see a big crisis coming up, this is often an opportunity for really good deals.
Yeah.
So if you can be in that situation of having liquidity when things are not going so well throughout the rest of the economy, your money is stretched in a big way.
Yeah.
And I think that Joseph's family, being wealthy coming from the Canaan and knowing what would happen in the future and so on, that helped them to settle in the land of Goshen.
Yeah.
You're listening to the Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.
Producer Sandy, can you please review now to us the answer to the quiz question?
In Acts chapter 15, a council convened in Jerusalem to consider, and the answer out of the two options that we had is whether whether Gentiles must become Jews before becoming Christian.
Yeah.
Was the answer.
That's right. That's right. Particularly around the topic of circumcision.
Yes.
That was the big hot topic debate.
Keeping the Moses laws.
Yes.
That's right.
Interesting other option that you gave about were they considering changing Sabbath to Sunday?
Yeah.
If that really was a thing back in those times, that would have been part of that Jerusalem council.
That's right. Sabbath being such a
100% hot topic.
But this is the thing. A lot of people kind of have that idea, if they should keep the laws of Moses or not. But actually, they when you look at the Jerusalem Council, in their answer, they expected for them to keep the laws of Moses. But the laws of Moses considered regarding health, like the Levitical laws, it says it's encapsulated by they should not eat meat with their blood.
Yeah.
The sexual related laws encapsulated by the idea of avoiding sexual immorality. So it's kind of all encompassing on that one. And there was another one.
They're the two that I remember.
They're the two that you remember?
I'm stumped as well.
Yeah, have a look. So of course, the Sabbath is a commandment that already included the Gentiles, the non-Jews, in the commandment.
The Sabbath is not a law of Moses; it is a law of God.
It is a law of God. That's right. It predates Moses.
It
actually predates the Jews.
Yep.
It predates humans.
Creation.
Doesn't predate human. You can say that it predated human if Sabbath was kept in heaven. But it was established at creation, right after the creation of the first day, the first full day that we as human beings experienced was a Sabbath day. And the Sabbath is the only command that already is including not only non-Jews, but it says the Gentile, the foreigner among you, your servant, and even your animals were included in the Sabbath as well. It's an universal command.
Yes.
Thanks for being a part of the Faith FM family. Join our community on Facebook or get in touch at 1-800-FAITH-FM.